All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Education Psychology Spring 24. My name is Nick Staffolino, and I'm the instructor of this course. Really excited that you all have decided to take this 200 level education psychology course with me. It's certainly the type of course that should be very, very valuable and interesting to you on a personal and professional level. And I'll hopefully explain why today as I go over the syllabus and go through kind of the outline of this course. So in this video, that is sort of my goal. I just want to, more than anything, give you a glimpse into what we're going to do for 16 weeks. And kind of just let you know like what the starting point is and when I kind of expect you to start getting work done and staying up on your work and getting things taken care of. I want to kind of just go through some general policies on my syllabus as well, and just really make sure that all of you feel good about this starting point that we have here in Ed Psych. So if you're an in-person learner, which I have a mixed bag, we have in-person, we have online, we have half-time, we have all kinds of learners in this course. If you're an in-person learner, I want to welcome you to classroom room 137, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12:30 to 1:45. That would be fantastic if you're able to join us in person. If not, though, I am going to optimize this course for online learning. This course is high flex, which means it's available in person and online. And I tend to lean towards making content really, really suited and digestible for the online students. And then what happens is by staying up and doing that well, my in-person classes become more effective. I know some high flex teachers do it in person and then they like record themselves teaching and then they post the teaching videos or whatever. I found that just isn't as effective for me. I do this online first and in person second. And by doing that, I feel like the education experience of both the online and in-person students is much higher. I feel like it's a great way for you guys to get the best of me and the best instruction. So if you're an online student, I really hope you know, like, I'm excited to have you in this course. I'm excited to work with you. I'm excited to learn with you and learn from you. And this course really is designed with you in mind. What are we going to be doing in here? Well, we're going to be examining classroom practices. Sure, that's kind of kind of probably overstated. We're going to be looking at young children through adolescent age, and we're going to be looking at how learning occurs, how motivation develops, how engagement develops, how students' interests, hobbies, dislikes, likes develop, how their relationships with other kids develops. And we're going to be looking at this from a physical, cognitive, and social perspective. So we're really looking, in a way, it's a bit of a human development course, really, but it's situated in the context of learning. When we say education, though, I don't want you to just think classroom, brick wall, math, science, reading. Really, when I talk about education, I'm talking about something more. I'm talking about how we learn and how what we learn leads to our capabilities and our identities. So in the same way that math education for a third grader and reading education for a third grader is holistically trying to move that student in a certain direction, I think the same thing can be true for an 18-year-old attending a trade school. The same thing can be true for a 25-year-old who's experiencing some sort of, is this really what I want to do, and goes down a YouTube learning rabbit hole. That's all education, right? So the idea is not formal K-12, it's learning broadly. And I want to make the comment too. So I say I'm looking at this from a physical, cognitive, and social perspective. we really aren't gonna look at this course um, from a behavioral psychology perspective. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the differences between what we'd call like cognitive psychology and behavioral psychology. Um, yes, we're going to talk about trauma-informed practice. We're going to talk about self-regulated learning, socio-emotional learning. But a lot of that is going to be rooted in hard science and in what's actually physically happening to the brain and the limbic system, and how our actions and our impulses can be shaped and reshaped by the environment, but not so much from that vantage that some people take, which is almost viewing psychology as its own religion, so to speak, or its own ethical system, and viewing it as the lens in which behavior is created. I'm viewing this really biologically, very, very biologically. So I want you to keep that in mind as we go through this course. I'm really interested in the biology of learning, not necessarily in the behavioral psychology side of things. And I bet if you had different teachers, that might change. But my reason for that is a lot of the world of behavioral psychology is observation, and we're really the conclusions drawn from behavioral psychology research come from a perspective of understanding the world through observation. And when I approach education psychology, I go with the biological approach, really looking at what's happening to the brain and what's happening on a chemical level, because that's measurable. It's not just observed, it's also measured. And so I have a lot more belief, I guess, in those measurable hard sciences, as opposed to the soft science of behavioral psychology. So just keep that in mind. Instructional materials, we're going to read a book. It'll all be available on Moodle for you. I'm not going to make you buy anything. We're going to read the entire book called Rich Brain, Poor Brain, Bridging Social and Synaptic Gaps in Schools. Super interesting. Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain by Zaretta Hammond. We will use this sparingly. This is my EDU 212 textbook, but I feel like they go hand in hand really well. So we'll have some moments where we're in that textbook. Kind of gone through these outcomes already and assessment. Let's talk a bit about policies. So my due date policy is, I think, really simple, and I think it's really fair. I don't take points off of your work for being late. I take work points off of your professionalism for being late. I view those as two different things. Your ability to get your work done on time doesn't tell me if you're learning or not learning. So if you turn in a paper 3 days late, that paper is going to receive that same score that I would have given it anyway. But I am going to take off professionalism points. Everybody starts with a pretty good amount of professionalism points in this course. I haven't decided if I'm going to do 30 or 25 yet. And then as you have late work, as you have lacks of professionalism, long story short, I take points off of that score in this course. And so you're going to lose points that you start with by having late work, but I'm not going to literally take it off of your hard work on your paper. That said, after 1 week, I'm not going to accept late work. I just think that's too long. 1 week is plenty of time for your grace period, and after 1 week, you get a 0 and you don't get any opportunity to redo it. I just think we have 16 weeks. 1 week is over 5% of the course, and if you miss over 5% of the course, and we're building onto our knowledge in a constructivist sort of way, you missing that 5% just you're going to get too far behind. So you need to stay on time. You need to get your work done on time. If you have an extenuating circumstance of any sort, you got to let me know in advance, or as soon as you can. And I think I have a lot of grace for students, so I will probably give you an extension. But if you just don't turn your work in week after week after week, I'm going to have to start giving it some zeros. So these are the type of assignments we're going to do. Honestly, this is probably not that reflective of the actual grading, but we'll get there. Academic integrity. I want to briefly comment on this in this video. As you all know, the world of computers has changed dramatically in the last 6 months. Artificial intelligence like ChatGPT is becoming a real thing in schools, and students in my classes have used artificial intelligence to write their papers. And in my mind, that constitutes cheating. That is a big deal to me. If I'm going to run every single paper that every single person turns in through an AI checker, and if you use artificial intelligence to write your paper, I will not accept it. I will give it a 0. I will give you 1 redo. I will let you have a grace period for that as well. I'll say, hey, I figured out that you actually used artificial intelligence to write this paper. I can't accept it, but I'll give you 1 week to redo it. You can redo it for full credit. You'll lose a professionalism score. Great, we move on. If you do it twice, I'm probably going to just fail you. I'll fail the assignment without an opportunity to redo for sure. It's a big deal. Depending on how big of an assignment it is, you'll fail the assignment at a minimum. You might fail the course. Okay, let's continue just going through our schedule really quickly. So this week, all I really have for you this week is to look over the syllabus, which we're doing here, watch this video, and then I will have an introduction discussion. Introductory readings, I think I actually want to wait till next week to get to those. So we're going to just have a discussion post for everyone to fill out. It'll be about your current knowledge of education psychology and your current understanding of how students learn and how people relate and learn. And then we're going to also, just have this video. So it's a really easy week 1. Technically speaking, we only have 1 class period, so I think that's fair to have a syllabus day, so to speak. And then starting next week, we'll hit the ground running. I want to do this very sequentially. So we're going to start with foundations. We're going to do a foundations project. I'm going to go over the big 3 with you, Erickson, Piaget, Vygotsky, and we're going to kind of look at their overarching theories of learning. You guys probably recognize these 3 guys. They are not just ed psych, they're psych. But after we go over those 3, have a quiz on them, we're going to begin a little bit of research where you are choosing another theory and another environment within the ed psych world to look into and write a paper. And in addition to that, to assess your learning and to really fix it in like a practical setting, I'm going to have you write a letter to a teacher. You're going to pretend like this will be, I'm going to fictitiously give you a case in which you are the parent of a child with some learning struggles, and you are going to write a letter to that teacher explaining how you want the teacher to help your child using the research that you do. So that case study, we're going to do a lot of these case studies. I think letters are really, really authentic assignments. So you're going to write a letter to a teacher this module, and then you'll see we actually have multiple letters we're going to be writing. Module 2, we're going to cover information processing theory, which I think is probably the most important aspect of education psychology. It is the framework for thinking about learning that I subscribe to. Heavily rooted in biology, heavily rooted in anatomy. It's really about the structure and function and building of the brain. And I am going to have you learn all about it. We're going to talk about engagement theory. And then we're going to cap that off with this thing called self-regulated learning, which is just a huge issue right now in schools. You'll have a quiz, you'll have an opinion paper. So rather than a research paper, you'll have an opinion paper, a little bit less formal. And then now I'm going to give you a letter to write as if you're a teacher writing to a parent. Okay. So we're trying to make this realistic in some senses, and make you have to think through the issues in different contexts. Module 3 is then going to bring us to the section on how students face challenges as learners. This is going to probably be a little bit more of a tender, might hit home for some of us kind of module. We're going to be talking about how learning disabilities, exceptionalities, poverty lead to struggles in learning and what we can do to help. And the way we're going to learn about that is first taking a deep dive into a book called Rich Brain, Poor Brain. I talked about it earlier. It's really not long. You can see it's right here. It's actually a pretty short book. We'll read the whole thing between Module 2 and Module 3. We'll read the whole thing pretty quickly. You're going to have a quiz over it, and then you're going to have to write a letter to a principal now. I haven't decided if you're going to be a parent or a teacher, but you're going to write a letter to a principal advocating for a policy change that is going to affect your student or student. Again, I'm not sure if you should be a parent or a teacher on this one, but you're going to be looking to make a policy change to help a student with a learning disability. And then finally, you'll do a little research on a learning disability or exceptionality or poverty. You get to choose. It's going to probably be a little heart-wrenching, honestly. I think it'll be very heart-wrenching. And I hope you guys know, like, as I teach this course, I teach it not ever as a condemnation of people's situations, but more as a how can we help people? How can we understand each other? How can we have grace and patience and empathy? And also, how can we toe that very difficult line of having patience, grace, and empathy, but also at times hard love when hard love is needed. So, we're going to have some really rich conversations here in Module 3. And finally, Module 4 is going to be very teacher-focused. I'm trying to keep this not teaching-focused for a good part of the class because I know not all of you are going to be teachers. But the very final module, the last 2 weeks, you're going to write a lesson plan using what you've learned. That's it'll be a very, very short module, and it'll be your kind of a fun way to wrap up the learning is thinking about how you would teach some kids if you were a teacher in a classroom. So I hope this is really rich for you guys. I'm excited to teach it. I'm excited to go over this stuff with you. I'm also just very honest. Like, I am not an educational psychologist. I'm a teacher. And so I see learning probably a little different than the psychologist sees learning, particularly the behavioral psychologist. I view this as what can we do to help people improve their capabilities, improve their abilities, improve their situations. I don't view this as a necessarily counseling. If I'm honest, I don't view this as counseling. So we will talk about a lot of the same things as a counselor may discuss, but I'm really approaching this in a educational context. So, all right, that is Ed Psych. I'm so excited to have you guys reach out to me over email if you have any questions, troubles, concerns, or even just statements. If you just want to drop me a message, say, hey, I'm super excited to be in this course, whatever, reach out, and make sure you do the discussion post so that's on Moodle. All right, cheers, y'all. Bye.